Greetings, lore seekers, and welcome back to the Lorelord. Today we're diving into the blood-soaked saga of one of Warhammer 40,000's most infamous and terrifying characters, Khârne the Betrayer, the chosen champion of Khorne, the Blood God. This is a warrior whose name has become synonymous with mindless slaughter, whose very presence on a battlefield guarantees that rivers of blood will flow before the fighting ends. If you enjoy lore videos about Warhammer 40k and other franchises, consider subscribing to the Lorelord. But Khârne's story isn't just about endless violence and brutal murder, though there's certainly plenty of that. It's the tragedy of a loyal Space Marine captain who fell so far from grace that he became the very antithesis of everything the Adeptus Astartes were meant to represent. It's the tale of how honor became bloodlust, how brotherhood became betrayal, and how a protector of humanity became its most savage enemy. Khârne represents chaos corruption at its most pure and terrifying. He shows us what happens when a Space Marine's capacity for violence is stripped of all restraint, purpose, and mercy. He is the end point of a journey that begins with noble sacrifice and ends in eternal damnation. A cautionary tale written in the blood of countless victims across 10,000 years of slaughter. This is the story of the World Eater's Legion's fall from grace, of Angron's influence on his sons, and of how one man's loyalty to his Primarch led him to become the galaxy's most feared champion of the Blood God. Prepare yourself for a journey into the darkest corners of the human psyche, where honor dies and only the hunger for blood remains. To understand Khârne the Betrayer, we must first understand the legion that forged him, the World Eaters, originally known as the Warhounds. Even before their reunion with their Primarch Angron, this legion had developed a reputation for aggression and close-quarters combat that set them apart from other legions, apart from their brother legions. The Warhounds were recruited from Terra's most violent populations, gladiator schools, gang fighters, and warrior tribes that valued strength and brutality above all other virtues. This recruiting base created a legion culture that celebrated violence for its own sake, where the ability to kill quickly and efficiently was the highest measure of worth. When these warriors were enhanced with Space Marine modifications, their natural aggression was amplified beyond normal Astartes parameters. They became living weapons whose only joy came from the heat of battle, whose only satisfaction came from defeating enemies in personal combat. They were exactly the kind of warriors their Primarch would appreciate. The reunion between Angron and his legion marked the beginning of their transformation from disciplined warriors into something approaching Berzerkers. Angron brought with him the gladiatorial traditions of Nuceria, including the brutal practice of implanting neural devices called the Butcher's Nails into his warriors' brains. These devices, originally designed to enhance aggression and pain tolerance in gladiatorial combat, had devastating effects on Space Marine psychology. They amplified rage while suppressing higher cognitive functions, creating warriors who could fight with inhuman fury, but gradually lost their capacity for complex thought and emotional control. The Butcher's Nails created a horrible addiction. The only relief from constant, agonizing pain came during combat, when the devices flooded the brain with pleasure chemicals triggered by violence and bloodshed. This turned the World Eaters into warriors who literally couldn't feel happiness except when killing. Even before the Horus Heresy began, the World Eaters were walking a dangerous path toward chaos corruption. Their embrace of violence for its own sake, their disregard for civilian casualties, and their gradual abandonment of tactical discipline in favor of Berzerker charges made them prime candidates for Khorne's influence. The Legion's culture actively discouraged the intellectual and spiritual development that might have provided resistance to chaos corruption. Instead, it rewarded only the most savage and brutal impulses, creating an environment where Khorne's whispers would sound like wisdom rather than temptation. By the time the heresy began, many World Eaters were already lost to bloodlust, kept in line only by their loyalty to Ongron and their residual conditioning as Space Marines. They needed only the right catalyst to complete their transformation from Imperial warriors to Chaos champions. Before his fall, Khârne served as captain of the World Eaters' 8th Assault Company, a position that marked him as one of the Legion's most capable and trusted warriors. Unlike many of his battle brothers, Khârne initially resisted the complete abandonment of discipline and tactical thinking that characterized the Legion's evolution. He was known for his loyalty to both his Primarch and his battle brothers, often serving as a voice of reason within a Legion that was rapidly losing its connection to rational thought. Khârne understood that their strength came not just from individual savagery, but from their ability to work together as a unified force. This loyalty would prove to be both his greatest virtue and his ultimate downfall. Khârne's devotion to Angron was so complete that he would follow his Primarch anywhere, even into the embrace of the blood god himself. His love for his battle brothers made him willing to share their fate, regardless of where that path might lead. When Horus announced his rebellion against the Emperor, the World Eaters joined the traitor cause without hesitation. For warriors who had grown increasingly disconnected from imperial ideals, the promise of unlimited warfare and the freedom to indulge their violent impulses proved irresistible. Khârne threw himself into the rebellion with characteristic intensity, leading his company in countless battles across the galaxy. Each engagement fed the growing influence of Khorne within the Legion, as their violent actions generated the psychic energy that would eventually complete their transformation into Chaos Space Marines. The heresy provided the World Eaters with the perfect environment for their corruption to flourish. Surrounded by endless war, encouraged to abandon restraint, and gradually losing their connection to their original purpose, they began their final descent into damnation. As the heresy progressed, the effects of the butcher's nails became increasingly pronounced in Khorne's behavior and thinking. The devices that had once merely enhanced his aggression began to dominate his personality, suppressing his capacity for complex thought while amplifying his need for violence. The constant pain from the implants could only be relieved through combat, creating a cycle of addiction that drove Khârne to seek out increasingly brutal confrontations. Each battle provided temporary relief, but also reinforced the neural pathways that made violence the only source of satisfaction in his existence. His tactical thinking, once one of his greatest assets, began to deteriorate as the nails prioritized immediate aggression over long-term planning. Khârne started to favor direct assault over complex maneuvers, personal combat over strategic coordination, and immediate gratification over disciplined patience. The Siege of Terra represented the climax of the Horus heresy and the final test of loyalty for every Space Marine in the galaxy. For Khârne and the World Eaters, it was the opportunity they had been waiting for, a chance to bring their particular brand of warfare to the very heart of the Imperium. The World Eaters threw themselves into the siege with savage enthusiasm, caring little for tactical objectives or strategic value. They simply wanted to kill, and Terra provided an almost unlimited supply of enemies to satisfy their bloodlust. Every wall they breached, every defender they slaughtered, fed their growing addiction to violence. Khârne distinguished himself, even among the World Eaters, through his brutal efficiency and apparent fearlessness. He led from the front in every assault, inspiring his warriors through example rather than words. His presence on the battlefield became a rallying point for World Eater forces and a source of terror for Imperial defenders. As the siege progressed and Imperial resistance stiffened, the psychological pressure on the traitor forces began to mount. The World Eaters, already unstable due to their implants and growing chaos corruption, began to show signs of complete breakdown. It was during this period that Khârne's final transformation began. The constant violence, the influence of Khorne, and the deteriorating effects of the butcher's nails combined to push him beyond the edge of sanity. He began to lose the ability to distinguish between enemies and allies, seeing only potential victims for his growing bloodlust. The breaking point came when Khârne's rage became so overwhelming that he could no longer control it, even during brief periods of rest. The butcher's nails had done their work too well, creating a warrior who existed only to kill and who could find no peace except in the act of murder itself. The exact moment of Khârne's final fall varies in different accounts, but all agree that it involved him turning on his own battle brothers during the height of combat. Some say he killed a fellow captain in a dispute over tactics. Others claim he slaughtered an entire squad of World Eaters who tried to restrain him from pursuing fleeing enemies. What matters is not the specific details, but the symbolic significance of the act. By killing his own brothers, Khorne completed his transformation from loyal space marine to chaos champion. He had betrayed the most fundamental bonds that held the legions together, earning him the title that would define him for eternity. From that moment forward, Khârne belonged entirely to Khorne. The blood god had claimed his greatest prize, a warrior so skilled and savage that his very name would become synonymous with mindless slaughter. The loyal captain was dead, and in his place stood the betrayer. Khorne's blessing transformed Khârne from a corrupted space marine into something approaching a living avatar of violence. The blood god's favor granted him supernatural resilience, inhuman strength, and the ability to survive wounds that would kill even other chaos champions. More importantly, Khorne's blessing amplified Khârne's combat abilities beyond anything he had possessed as a mortal warrior. His already impressive skills with blade and bolt pistol became truly legendary, allowing him to carve through enemy formations like a force of nature unleashed. The blessing also completed his psychological transformation, removing the last vestiges of restraint or mercy from his character. Khârne became incapable of feeling anything except the joy of combat and the satisfaction of killing. Everything else, loyalty, fear, pain, compassion, was burned away by the blood god's influence. Khârne's signature weapon, the chain-axe Gore-Child, became as infamous as its wielder. Originally one of a matched pair of weapons belonging to Angron, Gore-Child was given to Khârne as a mark of his Primarch's favor and his status as the Legion's premier warrior. The weapon itself was enhanced by Khorne's blessing, becoming more than just a finely crafted chain-axe. Gore-Child gained supernatural sharpness and durability, allowing it to carve through armor and flesh with equal ease. The weapon's machine spirit was corrupted by chaos, making it eager for blood and violence. In Khârne's hands, Gore-Child became an extension of his own violent will. The weapon and its wielder achieved a perfect synergy of destruction, each enhancing the other's capacity for slaughter. Together, they became one of the most feared combinations on any battlefield. After the Siege of Terror and the retreat to the Eye of Terror, Khârne's reputation for savage brutality continued to grow. He participated in countless battles and campaigns, always seeking new opponents to test his skills against and new victims to offer to the blood god. Unlike other Chaos champions who might pursue complex schemes or long-term goals, Khârne's motivations remained devastatingly simple: find enemies and kill them. This single-minded focus made him incredibly dangerous, but also somewhat predictable. He could always be counted on to choose the most violent option available. His presence on any battlefield became a guarantee that the fighting would be brutal and the casualties enormous. Both allies and enemies learned to fear his arrival, knowing that once Khârne entered combat, the battle would only end when everything around him was dead or dying. Throughout the 10 millennia since the Horus heresy, Khârne has participated in countless Black Crusades, raids and wars across the galaxy. Each conflict has added to his already legendary tally of kills while further cementing his reputation as one of Chaos's most dangerous champions. His participation in these campaigns follows a predictable pattern. He arrives, kills everything in sight, and moves on to the next battle. He shows no interest in conquest for its own sake, no desire to rule or govern. He exists only to fight and kill, making him simultaneously valuable and dangerous to other Chaos forces. Despite his apparent single-mindedness, Khârne's presence often proves decisive in major engagements. His combat abilities and the terror he inspires can break enemy formations and turn the tide of entire battles. Chaos commanders have learned to point him at their enemies and get out of his way. Over the millennia, Khârne has become the archetypal Khorne Berzerker, a warrior who has abandoned all pretense of tactics or strategy in favor of pure, mindless aggression. He represents the ultimate endpoint of Khorne's influence, showing what happens when a warrior gives himself completely to the blood god. This transformation has cost him much of his original intelligence and personality, but it has also made him incredibly effective at his chosen profession. Khârne no longer needs to think about combat. He simply reacts with perfect violent instinct, making him nearly impossible to outfight or outmaneuver. His example has inspired countless other warriors to follow the path of Khorne, creating entire armies of Berzerkers who model themselves on his savage efficiency. In this way, Khârne's influence extends far beyond his personal kill count to shape the nature of Chaos warfare itself. Khârne's relationship with other Chaos forces is complicated by his tendency to kill anyone within reach when his bloodlust takes hold. While he technically fights for the same cause as other traitor Marines, his inability to distinguish between friend and foe during combat makes him a dangerous ally. Most Chaos commanders have learned to use Khârne's abilities while maintaining careful distance from his person. They point him at enemy positions and then withdraw to a safe distance, knowing that anyone too close to Khârne when he enters combat risks becoming his next victim. This unpredictability has earned him as many enemies within Chaos ranks as outside them. Some champions have sworn vengeance against Khârne for killing their followers, while others simply avoid him entirely rather than risk his random violence. Any attempt to calculate Khârne's actual kill count over 10,000 years of warfare would be impossible, but the estimates are staggering. Some sources suggest he has personally killed more sentient beings than entire Space Marine chapters, while others claim his tally exceeds the casualties of major planetary wars. What makes these numbers particularly horrifying is that they represent not just enemy combatants, but also civilians, allies, and anyone else unfortunate enough to be near Khârne when his bloodlust overwhelms his remaining restraint. His victims include Imperial Guardsmen, Space Marines, Chaos cultists, and innocent bystanders caught in his path of destruction. The true measure of Khârne's impact isn't just the direct deaths he has caused, but the ripple effects of his actions. Battles he has participated in often escalate beyond all proportion. As his savage example inspires others to similar acts of violence and brutality. Beyond the physical casualties, Khârne's reputation has become a psychological weapon in its own right. The mere knowledge that he might be present on a battlefield can affect morale and decision-making among both allied and enemy forces. Imperial forces who face the possibility of encountering Khârne must deal with the knowledge that they are facing an opponent who cannot be reasoned with, bargained with, or deterred. This can lead to panic, desperation, or premature retreats that serve Chaos interests, even when Khârne himself is not present. For Chaos forces, Khârne's example serves as both inspiration and warning. His success demonstrates what can be achieved through complete dedication to Khorne, but his indiscriminate violence reminds them that serving Chaos always comes with terrible costs. Over 10 millennia, Khârne has become something approaching a force of nature in Imperial consciousness. His name appears in military manuals as an example of extreme Chaos corruption, in theological texts as a warning about the price of abandoning faith, and in popular culture as a boogeyman used to frighten children. This institutional memory serves multiple purposes for the Imperium. It provides a concrete example of what Chaos corruption can do to even the most loyal servants. It justifies harsh measures against potential heretics, and it demonstrates why the Imperial creed must be maintained at all costs. For Chaos forces, Khârne's legend serves different but equally important functions. He represents the rewards that await those who give themselves completely to the dark gods, proof that even the most dramatic fall from grace can lead to glorious violence and eternal purpose. Perhaps the most tragic aspect of Khârne's story is how completely he has lost everything that once made him human. The loyal captain who once cared for his battle brothers and served the Imperium with honor has been completely consumed by the savage killer who exists only to spill blood. This transformation represents one of Chaos corruption's most insidious effects. It doesn't just change a person's allegiances or beliefs, but fundamentally alters their personality and identity. The Khârne who exists today shares only a body and a name with the Space Marine who once served the Emperor. The Butcher's nails played a crucial role in this transformation, but they were only part of a larger process of psychological destruction. Khorne's influence, the trauma of the heresy, and the gradual abandonment of all moral restraints combined to create a being who is barely recognizable as having once been human. Khârne's current existence follows the classic pattern of addiction, with violence serving as both his drug of choice and his only source of relief from constant psychological pain. The Butcher's nails ensure that he can only feel pleasure during combat, creating a cycle that drives him to seek increasingly brutal confrontations. This addiction has consumed every other aspect of his personality and motivation. He no longer fights for ideology, revenge, or strategic objectives. He fights because fighting is the only thing that makes existence bearable. Everything else has been subordinated to this single, overwhelming need. The tragedy is that this relief is always temporary. Each battle provides only brief satisfaction before the pain returns, driving him to seek the next fight. He has become trapped in a cycle that can never truly satisfy his need, but which he cannot escape. One of the most disturbing aspects of Khârne's current state is the apparent absence of free will or conscious choice in his actions. The combination of Chaos corruption, neural implants, and psychological conditioning has created a being who acts purely on violent instinct. This raises uncomfortable questions about responsibility and redemption. To what extent is the current Khârne responsible for his actions, and to what extent is he simply a weapon being wielded by forces beyond his control? Can someone who has lost the capacity for moral reasoning be held accountable for their crimes? These questions become even more complex when we consider that Khârne's original fall was the result of choices he made. The choice to follow Angron, the choice to accept the butcher's nails, the choice to embrace violence over restraint. At what point did choice become compulsion and free will become slavery? Beyond his direct impact on battlefields, Khârne serves as one of Chaos's most effective psychological weapons against the Imperium. His reputation for savage brutality and indiscriminate killing has become a tool for spreading fear and undermining morale throughout Imperial forces. The knowledge that Khârne might be present in a conflict zone affects decision-making at every level, from individual soldiers who might panic at rumors of his presence to high command officers who must factor his potential impact into their strategic planning. This psychological effect often proves more valuable than his direct combat contribution. Stories of Khârne's atrocities spread throughout Imperial space, serving multiple purposes for Chaos forces. They demonstrate the futility of resistance, showcase the rewards of serving the dark gods, and provide concrete examples of what happens to those who oppose Chaos interests. From a Chaos perspective, Khârne represents perfect propaganda, a living example of what can be achieved through complete dedication to the Blood God. His transformation from loyal space marine to unstoppable killing machine demonstrates that anyone can achieve greatness through service to Chaos. His story also serves as a recruitment tool for potential Chaos cultists and traitors. The idea that even the most disciplined and loyal Imperial servants can be corrupted provides hope for those who feel trapped by Imperial restrictions and offers justification for their own rebellious impulses. For Khorne specifically, Khârne serves as the ultimate advertisement for the benefits of serving the Blood God. His supernatural combat abilities, his apparent invulnerability, and his freedom to indulge in unlimited violence represent everything that appeals to warriors who chafe under Imperial discipline. From an Imperial perspective, Khârne's story serves as the ultimate cautionary tale about the dangers of Chaos corruption and the importance of maintaining faith and discipline. His fall demonstrates how even the most loyal servants can be corrupted if they abandon the Emperor's guidance. This narrative serves multiple Imperial interests. It justifies harsh measures against potential heretics, reinforces the importance of absolute obedience to Imperial authority, and provides a concrete example of why constant vigilance against Chaos is necessary. The story also serves to humanize the abstract threat of Chaos corruption by providing a specific, relatable example of how the process works. This makes the danger feel more real and immediate to Imperial citizens who might otherwise dismiss Chaos as a distant threat. Khorne's influence extends far beyond his personal actions to shape the broader development of Chaos forces throughout the galaxy. His example has inspired countless other warriors to follow the path of Khorne, creating entire armies of Berzerkers who model themselves on his savage efficiency. The World Eater's Legion itself has become synonymous with his approach to warfare: mindless aggression, indiscriminate killing, and complete abandonment of tactical discipline in favor of direct assault. This has shaped how Imperial forces prepare for and respond to World Eater attacks. His reputation has also influenced how other Chaos factions operate, with many learning to use the threat of his involvement as a psychological weapon against their enemies. The mere possibility that Khârne might be deployed to a conflict zone can affect Imperial planning and morale. Khârne's approach to warfare has influenced the development of Chaos tactics throughout the Long War. His success with direct, brutal assault has encouraged other Chaos forces to adopt similar approaches, leading to the evolution of increasingly savage and aggressive fighting styles. This tactical influence extends beyond Chaos forces to affect Imperial defensive strategies as well. Knowledge of Khârne's capabilities and approach has forced Imperial commanders to develop new methods for dealing with Berzerker-style assaults and individual champions of extreme capability. The lessons learned from encounters with Khârne have been incorporated into Imperial military doctrine, creating training programs and tactical guidance specifically designed to help Imperial forces survive encounters with Chaos champions of his caliber. Within Chaos culture, Khârne has become something approaching a legendary figure whose exploits are celebrated in stories, songs, and rituals throughout the Eye of Terror. His name is invoked by warriors seeking courage, by champions seeking to emulate his success, and by cultists seeking to demonstrate their devotion to Khorne. This cultural impact helps ensure that his influence will persist even if he himself is somehow defeated or destroyed. The idea of Khârne, the loyal servant who achieved greatness through complete dedication to violence, has become more important than the individual himself. In Imperial culture, Khârne serves a different but equally important function as the ultimate example of everything the Imperium stands against. His story is used to justify Imperial policies, reinforce the importance of faith and discipline, and demonstrate the terrible consequences of abandoning the Emperor's guidance. Fellow lore-seekers, as we conclude this examination of Khârne the Betrayer, we're left with one of Warhammer 40,000's most complex and disturbing characters. Here is a figure who embodies both the tragic potential for corruption that exists within even the most loyal servants and the terrifying effectiveness of complete dedication to chaos. Khorne's story serves as a perfect example of how Warhammer 40,000 handles the theme of corruption, not as a simple matter of good versus evil, but as a gradual process of compromise and decay that can consume even the most noble intentions. His fall from grace wasn't sudden or dramatic, but the result of countless small choices that gradually led him away from his original purpose. What makes Khârne particularly compelling as a character is that his corruption began with recognizably human virtues: loyalty to his Primarch, dedication to his battle brothers, and commitment to his duty as a space marine. These positive qualities became the very mechanisms of his downfall, twisted by chaos influence into justifications for increasingly extreme actions. This transformation reminds us that corruption rarely announces itself as evil, but typically masquerades as virtue or necessity. Khârne didn't choose to become a monster. He made choices that seemed reasonable at the time, each one leading him further down a path he couldn't see clearly until it was too late to turn back. Perhaps the most important lesson from Khârne's story is the recognition that no one is safe from corruption, no matter how loyal, disciplined, or morally grounded they might be. His fall demonstrates that the greatest servants of order can become the most effective agents of chaos when their strengths are turned against them. This makes his story both terrifying and tragically human. We can understand the choices that led to his corruption even as we recoil from their consequences. We can see how someone might make similar decisions under similar circumstances, which makes his fate feel less like divine justice and more like a cautionary tale about the fragility of moral certainty. In the end, Khârne the Betrayer represents everything that makes Warhammer 40,000 compelling as a setting. The recognition that in a universe of endless war and impossible choices, even heroes can become monsters. Loyalty can become betrayal, and the price of survival might be the loss of everything that makes survival worthwhile. His existence serves as a permanent reminder that in the grim darkness of the far future, where there is only war, the greatest enemy might not be the obvious threats from outside, but the capacity for corruption that exists within us all. Sometimes the most dangerous betrayer is the one who was once the most loyal friend. Khârne will continue his eternal crusade of violence and death, adding to his already impossible tally of victims, while serving as both inspiration for chaos forces and warning for imperial defenders. In a universe where war is the only constant, he has found the perfect expression of his corrupted nature, eternal conflict with no possibility of victory, peace, or redemption. Blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne, and lessons for those wise enough to learn from the price of betrayal. Thank you for joining the Lorelord for this deep dive into one of Warhammer 40,000's most brutal and tragic characters. Khârne the Betrayer represents both the terrifying effectiveness of chaos corruption and the tragic potential that exists within even the most loyal servants. What aspects of Khârne's fall do you find most compelling or disturbing? Do you see his transformation as inevitable given his circumstances? Or could different choices have led to a different outcome? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this exploration of corruption, loyalty, and the price of violence in the 41st millennium, make sure to subscribe for more character, deep dives, and lore analysis. Hit that notification bell to stay updated on all the latest content. And remember, in a universe where anyone can fall, vigilance is the only protection against the darkness within. This is the Lorelord, signing off from the blood-soaked battlefields of the Long War. Keep seeking the lore. Keep questioning the nature of loyalty and corruption, and remember, even the most loyal servant can become the most dangerous enemy,